Okay, it is warm enough to glass. It is a balmy 20 degrees Celsius outside. So we need to, as I mentioned in the previous videos, I'm doing a cut lap on this single fin surfboard, meaning I'm going to tape all around the white here, laminate up, and then cut off the excess fiberglass. It'll become apparent as we start working through it. So I have some masking tape. I'm not using the really high adhesion at this point. You want really good quality masking tape. Later on you want something with really good adhesion for when we're doing the hot coat. But right now I'm just using something with good adhesion. This is painter's tape because I want to be able to remove this tape without peeling off the sealer and if you had painted the paint. So, okay, let's get started. A tip about masking tape: when you're masking something, get a nice long piece and then just kind of work. You have a lot of control when you work with one hand, the hand with the roll, and then the other hand to work it down against the board. If any of you watch any car shows, they when they're painting off cars, this is one of the tips that they have. And I have to say it works quite well. You might get a little bit of bleeding through underneath this tape because it's not high adhesion. That's okay. At least in my case, because I'm doing a pin line around the whole thing, so you can kind of hide your crimes. Make sure you push down on the tape so nothing bleeds through underneath the second piece of tape. Now this might be overkill, but I'm going to do all the way in. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's flip it over, put the fiberglass on it, back on it, and mix up some epoxy and start laminating. Now I'm going to install future fins, and what you should do before you put these in, if you are doing a type of fin box of some sort, sand it a little bit, rough it up, wipe it down with some acetone to get any oil or any grease or silicones that might be on it. I've already wiped it. I've given this a rough sand. You're going to put these in. Oh, I should mention, I've taped these so that the resin doesn't get inside when you're laminating. So these go in. You've taped over the raised edge, the raised, I guess, part where the fin goes. When you're all done glassing and hot coating the board, when you grind or you sand, you're going to sand this open, and you're going to remove the glass, then get down, and then this piece of tape will come right off as well. So we're going to glass these in. So I'm just test fitting them for now. But what will happen is, once I get my epoxy all mixed up, I'm going to dump a little bit in here, squish this down, squish down this one, roll back the fiberglass. Then I'm going to pour the epoxy out on the board and then start laminating. Okay, I'm going to go mix up some epoxy. Okay, we're ready to mix some epoxy up. I'm using a larger container. I'm tearing it off, it's me zeroing it out basically. I'm going to go with 350 grams of resin and 1/2 of that, 175 of hardner. I'm going to add some tint because I'm doing a tint job. I don't know how this will come out. This is just me giving it a try. A cap full of additive F, and we'll start glassing. I have a respirator. Epoxy is pretty low VOC anyway, but it does have some fumes, so I'm using an organic charcoal 3M respirator. I don't know if you can see it here on camera, but anyways, it's ones that people use to paint lacquer cars with, and you can use it for all kinds of other stuff. It's really good. So I'm going to measure out 350 grams. Ooh. And how I came up with 350 is just that I've, from my own experience, from doing boards, I've written down the amounts that I need to use. I'm not quite sure what a good guesstimate would be, but maybe we can look online to figure some of that out. But for a 7-foot board, I'm using about 350. I got 370 there. Oh well. So I'll do like 180 grams of. Actually, I'll do 185. Okay. Now, once you add the hardner, you have to mix it thoroughly, and you only got about a half hour of working time. I'm going to add some additive F to this. I don't really measure this stuff. They have a kind of a formula for this, but I don't bother with it. And this stuff is stinky. It's probably not that great for you. Now, some people can laminate really quickly because they're using a whole bunch of resin. What ends up happening is, if you do that, you can go along and you can laminate, but you waste a whole bunch of resin. I'm trying not to waste the resin because epoxy resin is quite expensive. So I take my time. It takes me a little longer, but I have a little less waste. So I'm going to mix the hardner, add some color. Actually, I might add the color now. Try to blend that all in. And I don't really have a particular formula for this. I'm just going to squirt a bunch in. And then hope for the best. Probably not the proper way of doing it. I'm sure people will be out there screaming about the way I'm doing it. It's not very scientific, but. So I'm going to mix this around, including the additive F. It looks really dark here. It won't be, because you're thinning. It's going to be going on thin fiberglass, but it's a nice rich blue. I should say this is more like a pigment than a tint because it's very opaque. The key also to mixing this stuff, don't mix it fast. Don't be like whipping it like mashed potatoes, or if you're making whipped cream. You want to scrape the side. Once you add the hardener, you want to mix it thoroughly, but you don't want to be whipping it like crazy. And the reason why is you impart air into your epoxy, and when you start brushing it on, or if you're laminating with it, you get bubbles in it and it can foam up. So hopefully that's enough resin. I might take this up to 400 because I don't want to have a risk of running short. So I got to add an extra 20 grams. And then I'll do 200 grams of hardener. Oop. Okay, went a little overboard. That's okay. So we'll do 200 grams now. I've bumped this up. So I've done 400 grams of resin. I'm going to do 200 grams of hardener because it's a 2-to-1. I've tared it off. I've zeroed it out now. It's roughly about 400. I'm off by a little bit. That's okay. We got a little bit of variance. But when working with epoxy, if you can, try to keep it as accurate as possible. As you can see, it's been a while since I've used this. So let's hope it sets. So now once I mix this, I got to start working. So make sure your tools are clean, everything's ready. You have your squeegees or your spreaders ready. I have 2 here. So I have a little bit of old epoxy on this. Fiberglass is ready. What we're going to do is we're going to pour the resin on because you don't want to leave it in the pot too long. I'm going to put in these first, fold my fiberglass back. The reason why you don't want it in the pot too long is because epoxy can, it starts creating a lot of heat. It exotherms and it can heat up really quickly, and the more it heats up, the quicker it will set. You don't want that because you want to extend your pot life, your working time. I have 3 cameras. When I'm working and laminating down below, tucking the fiberglass, the rails, I don't know if the GoPro is going to capture it. I might try re-angling it. I'm not sure. I have another camera down here. Hopefully I can capture some of it so you get an idea how to fold down the edges. The reason why I'm doing all this talking now is because I'm putting on my respirator, and it'll be a little harder for you to hear me. So let's get started. Gonna put my respirator on, take the GoPro off for a second. And pour in my resin. When you mix, scrape the edges, get it really nice and mixed. Once I start laminating, it might take me a little while, so please be kind with your comments. Like I said, I'm not an expert at this.